Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform and infrastructure, created by Microsoft, for building, deploying and managing applications and services through a global network of Microsoft-managed data centers. It provides both PaaS and IaaS services and supports many different programming languages, tools and frameworks, including both Microsoft-specific and third-party software and systems. Azure was released on February 1, 2010. Features: Microsoft Azure is Microsoft's cloud application platform. In June 2012, Microsoft Azure released the following new features. Websites allows developers to build sites using ASP.NET, PHP, Node.js, or Python and can be deployed using FTP, Git, Mercurial or Team Foundation Server. Virtual machines let developers migrate applications and infrastructure without changing existing code, and can run both Windows Server and Linux virtual machines. Cloud services: Microsoft's platform is a service environment that is used to create scalable applications and services. Supports multi-tier scenarios and automated deployments. Data management: SQL database, formerly known as SQL Azure Database, works to create, scale and extend applications into the cloud using Microsoft SQL Server technology. Integrates with Active Directory and Microsoft System Center and Hadoop. Media services: a PaaS offering that can be used for encoding, content protection, streaming, and/or analytics. The Microsoft Azure platform provides an API built on REST, HTTP, and XML that allows a developer to interact with the services provided by Microsoft Azure. Microsoft also provides a client-side managed class library which encapsulates the functions of interacting with the services. It also integrates with Microsoft Visual Studio, Git, and Eclipse. Services: websites, high-density hosting of websites. This feature was announced in preview form in June 2012 at the Meet Microsoft Azure event. Customers can create websites in PHP, ASP.NET, Node.js, or Python, or select from several open-source applications from a gallery to deploy. This comprises one aspect of the platform as a service offerings for the Windows Azure platform. Virtual machines: announced in preview form at the Meet Windows Azure event in June 2012. The Windows Azure virtual machines comprise the infrastructure as a service offering from Microsoft for their public cloud. Customers can create virtual machines, of which they have complete control, to run the Microsoft data centers. As of the preview, the virtual machines supported Windows Server 2008 and 2012 operating systems and a few distributions of Linux. Since May 2013, the virtual machine offering left the previous state and went into general availability state. Cloud services: previously named hosted services, the cloud services for Windows Azure comprise one aspect of the PaaS offerings from the Windows Azure platform. The cloud services are containers of hosted applications. These applications can be Internet-facing public web applications, or they can be private processing engines for other work, such as processing orders or analyzing data. Developers can write code for cloud services in a variety of different programming languages. However, there are specific software development kits started by Microsoft for Python, Java, Node.js and .NET. Other languages may have support through open-source projects. Microsoft published the source code for their client libraries on GitHub. Data management: SQL database, tables, blob storage. Business analytics: SQL reporting, data marketplace, Hadoop, Azure machine learning, cloud-based predictive analytics and publishing of APIs on the cloud. Identity: Active Directory, rights management, access control service. Messaging: Microsoft Azure Service Bus, queues. Media services, mobile services, implementation: Microsoft Azure uses a specialized operating system, called Microsoft Azure, to run its Fabric layer a cluster hosted at Microsoft's data centers that manages computing and storage resources of the computers and provisions the resources to applications running on top of Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure has been described as a cloud layer on top of a number of Windows Server systems, which use Windows Server 2008 and a customized version of Hyper-V, known as the Microsoft Azure Hypervisor, to provide virtualization of services. Scaling and reliability are controlled by the Microsoft Azure Fabric controller, so the services and environment do not crash if one of the servers crashes within the Microsoft data center, and provides the management of the user's web application like memory resources and load balancing. History: October 2008, announced the Windows Azure platform, first CTP of Windows Azure. March 2009, announced SQL Azure Relational Database. November 2009, updated Windows Azure CTP, enabled full trust, PHP, Java, CDN CTP and more, announced VM role, Project Sydney, pricing and SLAs, Project A Euro OE Dales A Euro CTP, February 2010, Windows Azure platform commercially available, June 2010, Windows Azure Update, .NET Framework 4, OS versioning, CDN. SQL Azure Update 50 GB databases, spatial data support, DAC support. October 2010, platform enhancements, Windows Azure Virtual Machine Role enhancements, admin mode, startup tasks, full IaaS support, extra small instances. Windows Azure Connect, access to on-premise resource for cross-premise apps, support for domain joining VMs, direct role instance connectivity for easier development, use your existing remote administration tools. Improved Dev/IT Pro experience, new Windows Azure Platform Management Portal, multiple users and roles for management, remote desktop, enhanced dev tools, PHP development, marketplace. December 2011, Traffic Manager, SQL Azure Reporting, HPC Scheduler, June 2012. Websites, virtual machines for Windows and Linux, Python SDK, new portal, locally redundant storage, April 2014, Windows Azure renamed to Microsoft Azure, new BETA preview management portal released, Azure experiences an outage affecting several customers, an internal server error has occurred. July 2014, Azure Machine Learning public preview, data center regions. Some data center regions have servers grouped inside containers, each containing 1,800 to 2,500 servers. The locations of the data centers are, North America, North Central U.S., Chicago, IL, South Central U.S., San Antonio, TX, West U.S., California, East U.S., Boydton, Virginia. South America, Brazil. Asia, China, Beijing, China, Shanghai, East Asia, Hong Kong, China, Southeast Asia, Singapore. Europe, North Europe, Dublin, Ireland, West Europe, Amsterdam, Netherlands. Japan, Japan East, Saitama, Japan West, Osaka. Oceania, Sydney, New South Wales, Melbourne, Victoria. The CDN nodes are located in 24 countries. Deployment in Ireland. As of July 2010, Microsoft had completed 6,000 installations of Azure in Ireland. Executives at Microsoft hoped that this figure would rise to 100,000 installations by 2011. Construction of the $500 million facility required 1 million man-hours of work with a peak workforce of around 2,100 workers. The facility, which began operating on July 1, 2009, currently covers 303,000 square feet, with 5.4 megawatts of critical power available. Over time, the data center can expand to a total of 22.2 megawatts of critical power to support future growth. Privacy: Microsoft has stated that, per the USA Patriot Act, the U.S. government can have access to the data even if the hosted company is not American and the data resides outside the USA. However, Microsoft Azure is compliant with the EU Data Protection Directive. To manage privacy and security-related concerns, Microsoft has created a Microsoft Azure Trust Center, and Microsoft Azure has several of its services compliant with several compliance programs including ISO 27001-2005 and HIPAA. A full and current listing can be found on the Microsoft Azure Trust Center compliance page. See also, Amazon Web Services, Engine Yard, Enlight Cloud, Force.com, GoGrid, Google App Engine, Google Compute Engine, Heroku, HP Converged Cloud, IBM Smart Cloud Services, Jelistic, Nodejitsu, OpenShift, OpenStack, Rackspace, SoftLayer, SketApp, VMware. Significant outages, Microsoft Azure outages and service disruptions have occurred from time to time. Some have been system-wide with potentially significant harm. References. Further reading. External links, official website, official blog, Microsoft Azure at DMOZ.